It stemmed from links that traced back to disgraced circles, to Prince Andrew and the ghost of Jeffrey Epstein. Connections buried for years, now exhumed by fresh documents that refuse to stay silent. Stay with me, because the real jolt isn't the probe itself, it's why it was triggered at all. According to confidential sources within palace legal teams, the inquiry began before dawn on January the 15th, 2026, after unsealed Epstein files surfaced names and timelines that looped too close to Meghan's past. The palace didn't act on speculation. It responded to credible disruptions, aliases, overlapping paths, and a pretense that had fooled even the sharpest eyes. The system isn't questioning loyalty, it's demanding proof of identity. Listen to what unfolded next. Within hours of the folder's arrival, palace protocols shifted like a fortress under siege. Access logs tightened, sensitive archives were relocked, staff briefings turned terse, with phones silenced in rooms where whispers once flowed freely. The mood wasn't outrage, it was containment. A high-level advisor phrased it in words that echoed like a lockdown order: treat associations as contaminated until dissected. That's when you grasp the gravity. This isn't a family spat. It's a legacy safeguard. And then emerged the detail that silenced even the most jaded courtiers. King Charles himself authorized the probe with a signature so deliberate, so devoid of emotion, it evoked a sovereign enacting protocol amid peril. His directive was crystalline, almost austere in its precision. This is verification, not vendetta, a shield for the crown's integrity. Yet in royal terms, a shield is often the prelude to a severance. Now pose this to yourself, for it's where the narrative ignites. If the palace is delving into hidden identities tied to Andrew's Epstein entanglements, what foresight did the late Queen possess that made her wary from the start? And if those entanglements now threaten a title, one certainty crystallizes. The Crown isn't debating Meghan's place, it's preparing to redefine it. The palace didn't ignite this probe in a vacuum. It stirred from a sequence of quiet revelations that accumulated like storm clouds over Montecito. While the world fixated on glossy interviews and branded ventures, something subtler brewed behind Windsor walls. A silent review of vetting files, beneficiary certainties, and the vulnerabilities that terrify lineages built on unbroken chains. The first signal wasn't a headline, it was a memo. An unadorned document entered Buckingham through discreet channels, not the ornate gates where crowds gather, but the operational veins used for intelligence that demands no audience. The memo bore no flourish, just facts aligned like evidence in a tribunal. A former aide, once privy to sealed dossiers, had whispered, "Examine the timelines. Andrew and Meghan intersected long before the romance." And when scrutinized, those intersections weren't serendipitous. They were threaded through elite webs, with Epstein as the spectral connector. Meghan wasn't an innocent newcomer when she encountered Harry in 2016. She was a navigator of high circles, forging alliances in Hollywood and transatlantic spheres. Andrew, the monarchy's errant envoy, traversed similar orbits during his trade ambassador tenure, mingling with magnates and controversial figures on public funds. Insiders reveal their paths converged in the early 2000s at galas and private soirees in New York and London. But the linchpin, Epstein, whose island and townhouse wove invisible bonds among the influential. Whispers from Epstein's erstwhile associates place Meghan on the fringes, introduced via entertainment conduits. Not entangled directly, sources emphasize, but proximate enough to recognize the players. A veteran yacht staffer from that milieu recalls a 2010 Caribbean assembly where Meghan appeared, pre-Suits fame, alongside Andrew in convivial settings. Yet before the Queen, it was all feigned novelty, a performance masking years of acquaintance. Why the facade? The Queen, astute to Andrew's Epstein stains, even post-2008 conviction, would have demanded transparency. Acknowledging prior ties risked exposing vetting lapses. How did someone brushing such shadows evade scrutiny? The palace's current inquiry dissects precisely that, her identities, from screen aliases to off-camera personas. Passports under variations, rumoured name shifts in pre-Hollywood eras. The verdict, per palace confidants, the decision to excise her royal status is inexorable. No more duchess, no lingering privileges. To fathom the escalation, unpack the deception chronologically. In 2001, Andrew's Epstein camaraderie flourished, flight logs chronicling jaunts with elites. Meghan, post-Northwestern, networked avidly in acting and modelling realms. Veterans from that period situate her at New York soirees where Epstein presided. A 2005 children's charity fundraiser, grimly ironic given Epstein's offences, featured Andrew as orator, with archived images showing Meghan amid patrons. The Conduit. Marcus Anderson, Soho House luminary, and Meghan's ally, whose ties delve into Epstein's domain, gatherings, facilitations. He bridged her to London's scene, Andrew's haunt. By 2013, amid Suits' ascent, they reportedly convened at a Toronto club during Andrew's official sojourn, exchanges of contacts, casual nods to Epstein, per leaked staff correspondence. Maintain discretion. The palace now interrogates that very phrase. Dig further and the chronology darkens. The investigation, initiated covertly last month, stems from 2025's unsealed Epstein dossiers referencing a West Coast actress aligned with Andrew's itineraries. Nameless, yet the profile aligns. Biracial, driven, media-linked. Palace jurists cross-reference against Meghan's voyages, unearthing overlaps that demand answers. Real identities form the probe's core. Meghan's narrative gleams. Rachel Meghan Markle, L.A. native Northwestern alum, actress to advocate. But anomalies accrue. Passport permutations like Meghan Rachel, fleeting Meg Windsor in private missives. Why the flux? Insiders with dossier access assert it's camouflage for pre-Harry exploits, those grazing Epstein's periphery and Andrew's cadre, a 2007 Florida jaunt under a nuanced name syncing with Andrew's Epstein visits. Rumoured modelling under alternate monikers linked to Epstein-affiliated lensmen. The scrutiny is meticulous, juxtaposing applications, manifests, even archival DNA to align discrepancies. Shared contacts from Epstein's confiscated logs cite mutuals enabling mid-2000s intros. The pretense before the Queen, calculated theatre as it shielded from her Epstein vigilance. Balmoral 2017 scripted intros as if novices. An ex-equerry noted the oddity. Andrew knew her prior, yet they enacted estrangement. Andrew colluded, naturally. Before Elizabeth, he posed as cautionary uncle, advising Harry on interlopers. Privately, sources claim he endorsed Meghan. She's aligned. The irony reeks. As Andrew's Epstein saga simmered, he smoothed her ingress. Now, with Charles incensed, excision looms. But this transcends old allies. It's a deceit mosaic spanning eras. Envision Balmoral 2017, the Queen presiding, Harry presenting his betrothed, Andrew present beaming. Yet, per the equerry, interactions were orchestrated, formal greetings masking familiarity. Odd, indeed, Andrew's prior knowledge, but strangers' charade. Why? The Queen's Andrew-Epstein qualms, public since 2008, would have ignited alarms. Tying Meghan risked derailing nuptials. Her Majesty's instincts flared. She mandated a Meghan vetting, revealing hazy 2009 New York excursions overlapping Epstein's sphere. Andrew mitigated mere Hollywood trifles. The ruse endured, cracks veiled. At the 2018 vows, Andrew prominent, Meghan distant. Insiders murmur a pre-Wright huddle aligning tales. Met via Harry. Fabrication to safeguard the story. Now, the probe shatters that. 2025 Epstein estate releases site Andrew's LA liaison, profile matching in intros. No irrefutable proof, but sufficient for action. Identity scrutiny encompasses pre-stardom, aliases in modelling tied to Epstein photographers. Under Charles, the palace rejects, though, safeguards, revoking titles, security, all letters patent drafted. Harry proved the ideal target, didn't he? Wounded by scrutiny, yearning for empathy. Meghan discerned that fragility afar, advancing with precision. But she arrived equipped, not merely charisma, but royal mechanics gleaned from Andrew pre-Harry. Soho veterans affirm Andrew shared vulnerabilities, charm targets, pressure points, outsider allure maximised. He allegedly proffered protocol nuggets, transforming an actress into seeming royalty swiftly. Epstein's aura lingered, his gaoler's luster captivating Harry, portraying Meghan as cosmopolitan, networked, invincible. The snare tightened summer 2016. Her TIG blog subtly recalibrated, sophistication hints, wellness, ambition echoing her curated image. No royal nods, too blatant. Foundations laid, past ties interred, no allusions to New York dinners, Caribbean convergences where Andrew-Epstein orbits intersected rising talents like hers. When Andrew-Epstein debacle erupted, 2019 Newsnight fiasco, Jeffrey Accord, Meghan muted. She, vocal on inequities, silent on her acquaintances' fall. Why? Allegiance, exposure dread. Or critique risking scrutiny of her familiarity. Harry ingested it wholly. Spare lambasts Andrew yet omits Meghan's proximity. Happenstance, unlikely. The probe now tugs those strands, Epstein Circle testimonies, recalling a West Coast actress at marginal events. Andrew central. No courtroom fodder, but a sense portrait, leveraged endorsements, undetected ingress. The Queen intuited discord, but trusted Harry's choice, her oversight. Charles, post-Andrew purge, perceives hazard starkly. Excision severs a forged bond. Monarchy absolves no deceit imperiling the lineage. Real identities chill palace veins. Meghan's facade airtight. Rachel Meghan Markle. Inspiring trajectory. Yet scratches reveal inconsistencies. Name shuffles masking Epstein Andrew brushes. 2007 Florida under variant. Andrews Epstein sync. Mid-2000s modelling alias. Epstein-linked shooters. Minor, perhaps, but royal audits amplify patterns. The inquiry forensic manifests, swabs matching aliases. Epstein logs' mutuals facilitated intros, Queen pretense, theatre-preserving illusions. Balmoral nods, Royal Lodge firsts, drama. Favours reciprocated. Andrew's 2021 settlement, Meghan's PR subtly shaped spin, unpublicised. Pattern evident, jettison unuseful, recraft tales, victimise when queried. Mirroring her kin erasures, first spouse dismissal. Andrew echoed with Epstein denials. Palace mirrors wants detachment. Titles revoked. HRH, it stripped. Protections null. Charles's signet awaits. No recourse, no tearful broadcasts, gone. The tipping point crashed through the palace in the waning months of 2025, ushering in one of the most volatile eras the monarchy has endured in decades. The US Department of Justice unleashed over 3 million pages of Epstein-related files, not the familiar recycled fragments that had circulated for years, but explosive new material, post-conviction emails, photographs, itineraries, and correspondence that extended Andrew's entanglement far beyond his discredited 2019 BBC claims of severance. These documents included invitations extended to Buckingham Palace itself, references to ongoing contact after his supposed cut-off, and even FBI-flagged mentions of royal residences in connection to Epstein's circle. Andrew's name dominated headlines once more, but the ripple reached further. Peripheral figures in the same glittering, tainted elite networks began surfacing in ways that could no longer be ignored. That's when Buckingham Palace's internal defences activated with surgical precision. King Charles, already burdened by the relentless clean-up of his brother's scandals, including the late 2025 stripping of Andrew's titles and forced relocation from Royal Lodge, convened his innermost circle of advisers in a series of tightly controlled sessions. No more incremental measures, one source close to the sovereign confided. The monarch's frustration had hardened into resolve. The institution could no longer afford even the appearance of harbouring unresolved liabilities tied to Epstein's legacy. The order came swiftly and without public fanfare, launch a discreet yet exhaustive internal investigation into Meghan's rumoured long-standing connections, extending beyond the Andrew link to encompass the full spectrum of her real identities, passport variations, name usages in early contracts, and the pre-Hollywood networking manoeuvres that had long raised quiet flags during initial royal vetting processes. Internally codenamed something austere like Operation Clarity, the probe mobilized forensic document specialists, retired intelligence consultants with MI5 backgrounds, and legal teams cross-referencing every detail against the freshly unsealed Epstein estate materials. Key revelations materialized with alarming speed. Meghan and Andrew's acquaintance dated back at least to 2004, facilitated through Epstein-linked introductions at high society events in New York and Los Angeles. Mutual contacts, including Soho House's Marcus Anderson, who has long served as one of Meghan's closest confidants, functioned as critical bridges into London's elite scene, where Andrew remained a fixture during his trade envoy years. There were documented dinner sightings in 2012 during one of Andrew's official Toronto visits, ostensibly business but unofficially an opportunity to mingle with emerging talents. Leaked email chains from Andrew's staff even contained explicit instructions to maintain discretion around a West Coast contact, whose description aligned closely with Meghan at the time. Before the late Queen Elizabeth II, the interaction was pure theatre, staged ignorance, polite nods at family gatherings, no trace of prior familiarity. The Queen, acutely aware of Andrew's toxic Epstein associations, public knowledge since his 2008 conviction, would have insisted on complete transparency during Meghan's engagement vetting. Concealing those ties risked derailing the entire union. Sources indicate the Queen registered an underlying unease, but ultimately deferred to Harry's evident conviction in his choice, perhaps her single greatest miscalculation in an otherwise impeccable reign. Now, under Charles's stewardship, that original deception stands as unforgivable, a breach of trust that the current sovereign views as incompatible with the monarchy's need for unassailable integrity. The investigation's reach expanded rapidly, uncovering travel log overlaps with Epstein's documented orbits, alias usages in obscure modelling or professional contracts from the mid-2000s, and a rumoured 2007 Florida excursion logged under a slight name variant that eerily coincided with Andrew's movements in Epstein-adjacent properties. No direct criminal implications against Meghan emerged, no victim statements, no financial trails, but the sheer proximity proved damning in an institution that measures risk in degrees of association rather than proven guilt. She knew the key players, capitalized on the perceived glamour of those circles, and maintained conspicuous silence when Andrew's scandals detonated publicly. Was it residual loyalty, fear of reciprocal exposure, or calculated self-preservation? The palace no longer speculated, it documented. The endgame coalesced with chilling efficiency. Letters patent, the Crown's most decisive constitutional instrument, are already in preparation, invoking royal prerogative at its most unyielding. Meghan's Sussex ducal titles face revocation, her HRH style permanently stripped, and any residual perks, from security provisions at Frogmore Cottage to lingering diplomatic courtesies, axed entirely. A public announcement is anticipated soon, likely timed to coincide with a major royal calendar milestone to dilute media amplification. Charles harbours no sentimentality here. The institution's continuity supersedes all personal ties. This is not retribution. It's the excision of a liability that has festered far too long within the royal ecosystem. And for the children, Archie and Lilibet, their princely status now dangles precariously on the same fragile thread of documentation. The palace remains patient because time, precedent, and irrefutable records invariably prevail over emotion. This probe's shockwaves extend far beyond Meghan's personal standing. They reverberate through the entire royal architecture with seismic force. Prince Harry, already isolated in the sunlit seclusion of Montecito, absorbs the most punishing impact. His memoir Spare excoriated Andrew as the family's moral outlier, yet conspicuously omitted any reference to Meghan's own historical proximity to the same discredited circle. As palace source details now leak strategically, Harry's credibility suffers another severe erosion. Insiders describe him as privately furious, caught in an agonizing internal rift, defending his wife on one side while confronting the uncomfortable reality that his uncle's network, however indirectly, smoothed her path into the family fold. The Sussex brand, meticulously constructed around narratives of victimhood, hard-won independence, and residual royal adjacency, begins to collapse without that adjacency. Netflix collaborations cool, Spotify has already vanished, and removing the Duchess title leaves only two high-profile expats peddling podcasts, Archwell vagueness and occasional media appearances stripped of institutional weight. For Andrew, the fresh Epstein file dumps reignite unrelenting torment. Already divested of titles, banished to Sandringham exile after Royal Lodge, the latest tranche, post-conviction photos, emails and renewed accuser claims involving royal properties, drags him back into unforgiving scrutiny. Thames Valley Police review fresh allegations, the FBI maintains him on shortlists for potential testimony, and public pressure mounts relentlessly. King Charles, repeatedly heckled on walkabouts about family cooperation with authorities, preserves a stony public silence. Privately, however, the king seethes. Andrew's enduring mess inadvertently facilitated Meghan's undetected entry, rendering both figures intolerable liabilities in an era demanding zero tolerance. The broader royal trajectory sharpens into unforgiving clarity. Charles's reign, shadowed by health challenges and deliberate plans for a slimmed-down monarchy, permits no room for lingering scandal. Prince William and Catherine emerge as the unblemished, forward-facing embodiment of renewal, clean, disciplined, modern. Peripheral figures no longer dilute the core brand. For Archie and Lilibet, princely and princess titles weaken constitutionally without Meghan's underpinning status. George V's 1917 letters patent loom as precedent, reminding that such honours flow from and can be withdrawn by the sovereign alone. Public reaction fractures predictably along entrenched lines. Sussex loyalists decry racism, conspiracy, institutional vendetta. Yet, mounting evidence, unsealed files, corroborated insider accounts, documented overlaps, builds inexorably. The monarchy has weathered executions, revolutions, world wars through ruthless adaptation. This episode demands a similar surgical cut, stripping Meghan restores institutional integrity and broadcasts unequivocally that the Crown will harbour no secrets tethered to Epstein's web. Lingering questions persist, haunting every corridor. How profound were those early introductions? Were favours quietly exchanged in the shadows of those elite gatherings? Epstein's death silenced one critical voice, but the files continue speaking in relentless detail. Survivors and advocates clamour for full transparency, while palace insiders brace for inevitable further leaks. For Harry and Meghan, the brand implodes definitively, no longer royals in any functional sense, reduced to celebrities burdened by unresolved baggage. The institution endures, leaner, more fortified, more vigilant. Charles waits, the necessary paperwork poised and unemotional. The crown does not bend under pressure, it prunes what threatens to weaken it. This saga bears no resemblance to polished, streaming fairy tales rewritten for sympathy. It stands as a raw, unsparing cautionary chronicle of hubris, layered deception, and the hard limits of believing one can outmaneuver a 1,000-year-old institution. Meghan entered as the charismatic outsider, masterfully leveraging connections, including those brushing Andrew and the shadowy fringes of Epstein's world, to ascend. She played the ascent game with precision, network relentlessly, rise swiftly, discard whatever becomes inconvenient. Yet the palace operates on an entirely different plane, not a Hollywood set, but a machine forged from precedent, exhaustive documentation, and an ironclad instinct for self-preservation. The endgame now appears stark and irrevocable. Meghan is out, titles revoked, status erased, the borrowed prestige that once fueled commercial ventures severed at the root. She reverts to Ms. Markle, a private citizen whose royal chapter concludes not with spectacle, but with the quiet constitutional finality of a signature on letters patent. Charles's authorization will render it official, the Crown bestows, and the Crown reclaims without apology or negotiation. There will be no successful appeals, no tearful sit-downs to sway opinion through emotion. The machinery grinds forward inexorably, indifferent to personal narratives. The breaking intensified dramatically in the closing stretch of 2025 as the DOJ's massive document dump landed like successive detonations at Buckingham's heart. These were not mere archival scraps, but genuine bombshells. Correspondence continuing well after Epstein's 2008 conviction. Palace-adjacent invitations, FBI notations, elevating Andrew's profile, and glimpses of post-2010 interactions he had publicly disavowed. Andrew dominated the initial fallout, but the document's reach extended to peripheral names within the same compromised elite orbits. Charles, exhausted yet resolute after Andrew's title revocation and exile, summoned trusted counsel with unmistakable clarity. No further half measures. The directive crystallized quickly, probe Meghan comprehensively, not solely the Andrew connection, but the shadowy array of identities, from passport inconsistencies to pre-fame professional maneuvers that had quietly troubled vetting teams for years. Operation Clarity mobilized, forensic examiners, former MI5 operatives, exhaustive cross-checks against Epstein materials. Discoveries accelerated, ties tracing to 2004 via Epstein-facilitated New York and LA events. Anderson as conduit, 2012. Toronto encounters under discreet protocols. Queen-era pretense, complete feigned unfamiliarity, shielded from her documented Epstein vigilance. Her trust in Harry's judgment proved tragically misplaced.